Bonjour, ni hao, ciao.
Hola, bienvenidos a mi canal. Today I'm going to show you guys how to do this textured painting by using speckling paste, or in other words, plaster. I don't know why I whispered it, but I just felt like I needed to whisper. Okay, so here we go. What it do, what it do, what it do. If you've been following me on Instagram or TikTok, you have noticed that I've been working on this painting since like 1998. I'm just kidding. No, actually December, which is still pretty long. But don't worry, I am sure you won't take that long to make a painting like this one, because it's relatively easy to do. So the first thing you need is a canvas. Mine is 30 inches by 48 inches, and it's the professional level 3, meaning that the canvas is a little thicker on the depth side, and it's considered heavy duty. And you'll need a somewhat equivalent sized cardboard piece, an X-Acto knife, cutting mat, tweezers, paint, a paper stencil of the pattern design you want, which I made this stencil, and spatulas, paint brushes, and for the most important item of this project, speckling paste or plaster or anything similar to that type of material. So as I mentioned before, I did make this stencil with my two little hands, and I made it on translucent paper. You can do a pattern similar to this or something completely different, but just remember that the cutout parts are the parts where the paste will puff out. What you're gonna do with the stencil is trace it all over the cardboard. I taped the edges of the stencil so the stencil wouldn't move as much, and I used a paperweight to help me out with that too. After tracing this beauty all over the cardboard, I cut out all the inner shapes with an X-Acto knife, and let me tell you that I took a long time doing this. But I guess it was my fault because I definitely cut more than I actually needed. So my biggest tip of the day for you is to first map out where you want the pattern to be on the canvas, so you don't be like a mensa like me, wasting time cutting more than you actually need. Oh wow, look at that. That looks nice. What a beauty. There's so much to it without that many colors, you know what I mean? There's like so much going on. It kind of looks like cake, but it ain't cake. Alrighty, now I'm going to show you the 4 main techniques I used to make this painting, and obvio, you can make many other techniques and mix and match for your painting. Have fun with it and explore what else you can do and use with these 4 methods. For the first one, it's nice and simple. All you do is use a somewhat medium-sized spatula, and you just drag it across the canvas multiple times while adding more paste to the canvas to get a smooth texture. And you're going to use this technique a lot because the rest of the techniques, you start with spreading and smoothing the paste on the canvas like this. The next one, you do the same as the previous one at first, and then with a triangular spatula like this one, you lightly flick the spatula downwards and then lift the spatula up at the end of each flick to create that lifted paste texture. And you repeat this as many times as you want. It looks cooler when you do like very exaggerated flicks. Yeah. Alright, moving on to the next one. You're going to evenly spread a nice layer of the paste on the canvas, and with the straight edge of a wide spatula, you're going to continuously tap it against the paste in a uniform direction. Okay. For the last and most important one, you first spread a pretty nice thick layer of speckling on the canvas, and then you cut rough edges on the cardboard stencil of the pattern that you just made, and then place it right on top of the paste, and with a pointed tip utensil, you're gonna squish that cardboard against the canvas so the paste puffs out. Now you're gonna let that thing dry, let it, settle down, let it meet the canvas, let it stick to the canvas, let it do its thing. The speckling I'm using turns white when it's dry, so if you're using something different, make sure to read the instructions on your product to see how long it will take to dry for yours. Once the speckle is dry to the touch, we're going to peel off the cardboard stencil, and you're gonna try to forget that you spent many hours on making that stencil because now you're gonna completely rip it apart, but it's okay, it's part of the process. One thing I do need to advise you on is to be very gentle when ripping the cardboard off, because if you tear it out like when waxing hair off, you are for sure tearing up some portions off that poor canvas. I found it helpful to snip it up by little sections and peeling it off with tweezers to avoid that from happening. Then the last step is to lightly brush over some paint on that relief so they can stand out more and give it that spice. I personally use silver acrylic paint to give it that shimmer that it desperately needs, because without it, it's completely dry. So yeah, that's what I did. Okay, now that we got all those techniques down, I'll show you how I mix them all up together for the final product. I painted the canvas edges silver, and I painted random spots on the canvas, keeping in mind that the blank spots are the spots where speckling will take place. And I made the placements as asymmetrical as possible because I think it's just gonna give it a more interesting look. Alrighty, so now I start thinking where I'm placing the cardboard stencil. I cut it with raggedy edges so it looks imperfect and rough, since that's the vibe I'm going for on this painting. After finalizing where I want this pattern to be on the canvas, I start doing the fourth method that I showed you earlier. Before taking out the cardboard stencil, I began to mix up techniques together with the speckling and making sure that they kind of overlap each other and leaving blank spaces so the silver canvas can be exposed. Once it's all dried up, we can remove the cardboard stencil out. Alright, so let me tell you something. If a puff out portion pops out, don't you worry, there's a solution. Just plaster some speckling behind the fallen portion and put some on the canvas. Then push them together and with a narrow spatula scrape off the excess and smooth it out on the edges. Let them dry and it's good to go. You'll probably notice that there's cardboard fuzzies left over and stuck to the plaster, which impairs the overall aesthetic. So to clean that up, I use tweezers to lightly scrape off the particles out, and it also enhanced the pattern to look more crisp and clean. Final step is to paint over what you just created. You put as much or as little amount of paint you want on it. Tú haz lo que te dé la gana. I used a fan brush to help me out lightly build up that paint. So yeah, that's just a little tip. And that's it. Put some sawtooth hangers, D-rings, and attach hanging wire at the back of the canvas, and it's good to go. I will be live streaming on YouTube the following weeks. Well, to be honest, months, because I will be working on more paintings that people have requested me to make. We'll test things out and see how that goes. But yeah, bendiciones. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.